Let's import our renders. When we're in the node graph, I'll just click R on the keyboard. Let's import both of them. I'll click S on the keyboard to go into the project settings. Let's change our format to 2000 by 4000, which is the size of our image. We'll go to the color tab, and you guys can copy my settings for this. So we're working in the ACES CG color space. Let's view our image. I'll drag the viewer out so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. I'm just resizing that now. Just going to shift that to the side so you can see it. So I think out of the box it's looking pretty good. So there's not a massive amount we need to do to this. Let's drop down a color correct node. And I think we'll drop down the midtones just a touch. I'm going to zoom in whilst I'm doing this. If I click D on the node, I can disable it. I think that's about right. Just to take the heat off those whites. Next thing we'll do is I'm going to load all my plugins. And I'm going to drop down a node called a PMAT. And if you go to Nukepedia, there's a guy called Ivan Busquets, and he created this node, and it's really, really good. And just to mention that I'm not in any way associated with Nukepedia, but I thought it'd be good to show this tool because it's really excellent. Let's drop down a shuffle node. Let's shuffle out the object position. Let's pipe the shuffle into the PMAT. We'll output RGBA just like that, which gives us a mask. And I'll click on this black box here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select pixels in the viewer here by holding Control down first and then left click, and you can sort of drag. We'll just sort of drag that into the middle. I'm holding down Control and left clicking as I'm doing this. Put that right in the middle there. And we'll just drop this. Just do that one more time. Doesn't seem to like that. Try that. Let's move it up. Scale it down. Like so. I think that's okay for now. So we generated a mask, and this is based on the object. So even if your bottle is animated or it's moving, this mask is going to stay stuck exactly in the same position, so it won't move around. And that's a much better way of doing it rather than sort of adding a roto, because then you'd have to key the roto, which would be a bit of a pain. Let's drop down another color correct. I think I'll rename this to reduce midtones. This will be highlight soda text, and we'll plug the PMAT into the mask slot. I'm just going to gain that up just like that. Let's toggle it on and off, see where we're at. I think for now that's looking pretty good. It's just to draw the attention and the eye to this area on the bottle. Alright. I think what we can do is add some glow to this. Let's drop down a keyer. And we'll make sure this is set to luminance. So luminance key. I'll switch to the alpha channel. Just going to drag these handles. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to isolate the areas that I want to be glowed. I think something like that. I think that's fine. Let's drop that down a little bit. switch back to the RGB. So I'm just toggling A on the keyboard there. Let's drop down a pre-mult. So we're now pre-multiplying the RGB by the alpha. So if we go from here to here, we get this result. What we're going to do now is blur this pass here several times. Stick down and blur. Put the first blur set to 1, second one set to 2, third one set to 4. I'm just going up and I'm doubling this. And the last one set to 8. So hook all those up. Just like that. Let's keep them in a nice line so we're staying nice and organized. Like so. So if we switch between them now, we've got a blur of 1, then 2, 3, 4. Cool. Let's merge all of them together. Drag the left handle. The right handle is a mask. And we'll merge that in with the existing pipe. So anything that's new, anything new that's coming into the stream should be A in. So then we get this. And if we need to change the amount that's being keyed there, I'll either drop this back, have a play around with it. You can get some interesting results. Let's just dial this mix back, just so we're adding just a touch of glow. Just like that. That's looking kind of cool. Switch back to the original. It's nice. We're bringing attention to the soda text there. We've added our glow in. Next up, let's add some chromatic aberration. Let's drop down a shuffle node, and we're going to shuffle out the red, green, and blue channels. I'll hold down Control on the keyboard to bring up these dots, and I'll select the dot. Let's rename this shuffle node to red. And we'll leave the red where it is. We'll shuffle the green into 0, which is just black, which is nothing. The blue into 0, which is nothing. And if we view here, we get red. So let's do that for the green as well. Double click, rename this to green. Let's put the red into black, and then we'll take the green back out of the black and put it into the green channel, which is the second input. And we get green. And lastly, for blue, we'll put the green into the black and take the blue out of the black and put it into the third input, which is the blue channel. There. Let's merge those three together. So that, keeping everything nice and organized. And we'll plus them. So if we switch between here and here, you'll notice nothing's changed, and that's because we haven't transformed or scaled these channels. So after each one of these shuffles, we'll hit T to add a transform node. Just like that. And I think we'll transform the red channel. We'll just move this out. So if I enter something like 2 in X, we'll see what's happening here. I'll go up to something like 10 just to make this really extreme so you guys can see it. There you go. That's a lot more obvious. We'll put that back down to something like 2. And I can switch between them. So if I hit 1 on this dot node and 2 on the plus, we can just go between them, hitting 1 and 2 on the keyboard. I'll come out. It's not massively obvious, but it should be subtle. Cool, okay. I think just before the the chromatic aberration, I'd like to just adjust how bright this is getting here. It's just blowing out a little bit too much for my liking. And the focus should be in the center of the bottle. We'll take another P mat. Use the same settings, RGBA, and just neaten this up a little bit. This is going to go into a color correct. And on this P mat, select the box again, control click, and we'll click down to sort of the bottom area. I'll scale this right down. I'm using Alt and left clicking here. Didn't seem to like that. Okay, there you go. I think I'll scale the Y down like that. I think something around that. We'll lift it up like so. Scale it back down like that. Keep moving that back down so it almost hits the floor. Scale it again a little bit more. Scale it down just like that. I think we'll just decrease the fall off a little bit. Let's plug that into the mask of the color correct, and then on here we can just gain that sort of down a little bit there. Let's toggle that on and off. I think that's looking kind of cool. But I think it needs to go down a little bit more. I think it's yeah, I think that's working nicely. Okay, so after our chromatic aberration, we can merge in a vignette. So I'll take a merge. We'll drop down a constant, which is just a standard color or a flat color. And we're going to multiply this constant with the RGB values here, which will result in a black image looking like that. Let's drop down a roto. We'll grab the ellipse. I'll just hold and left click on there. We'll grab the ellipse there. Plug the roto into the merge, and we're just going to drag just like that. Scale it like so. We'll invert that, and my usual method for blurring is adding a blur node after the roto. I don't like using this feather option. I don't think it works very well for me. So and let's just blur it by something like 350. Let's play around with the roto. Just scale that outwards. I don't want it to be too obvious. Just something nice and subtle around the edges, just to frame the image. I'm just going to dial back that mix. Let's toggle it on and off. Adds a nice subtle effect. I think overall that's looking quite nice. I think we can take the Cryptomat. Just going to move these up a little bit. Let's take the Cryptomat. We'll shuffle out the Cryptomat, which you always have to do. So if you try to add the Cryptomat image into a Cryptomat node, nothing will happen. So you've got to shuffle it out first. We'll shuffle out the crypto to mesh. This gives us this. And we'll plug that shuffle into the Cryptomat node. I'll take the picker, control click on the bottle cap. We'll say matte only, and now we have a mask for the cap. God bless Cryptomat. Love it. We'll put this on the right hand side as masks in nuke are on the right side. So you should always keep your masks on the right side there. Let's color correct this. I'm just going to gamma it down just a touch. Just get a little bit more of a metallic feel. We can even gain the highlights up a little bit, I think. Feel a little bit more metallic. I think maybe we've pushed it a little bit too far there. Toggle it on and off. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty cool. At this stage, we can drop down a write node as we're ready to write out this image. So we want to write out a JPEG. Let's go to the composited images folder. I've already written out 4. I'll click on this one and we'll rename this to 5. And make sure you've got the .jpeg extension. You can use a JPEG extension like this, JPEG or JPG. JPG is probably better. Let's set the color space to output sRGB, as we're most likely all viewing from a standard RGB monitor. Increase the quality to 1, subsampling to 444, so there's so it's practically lossless. And let's hit render. Let's re-import that image. And you'll notice it looks like this. It's very dark, and that's because the color space is set wrong on the read node. So that should also say output sRGB. So we're viewing the image in an sRGB color space. What I'll do is show you guys the image in Windows Viewer compared to the image in Nuke, just so we can see that the color space is set correctly